Good morning, everybody, and happy Sunday. On behalf of the Christabelle Spiritualist Church, my name is Mark Dorsett. I am the student pastor there, and I'm sure you've noticed that I'm not there today. I kind of figured, being that it was the first Sunday of the year, and being that, all of you are probably sitting at home watching me in your jammies, that it would be my turn to also do that today. I mean, even the pastor likes a day off now and again, so here we are, being a little bit more casual today. But that's not to say that I don't feel that this is a very important sermon. So without any further ado, why don't we jump right into our invocation as well as our declaration of principles. So please bow your heads virtually. Great Spirit, as spiritualists, we gather here this day to renew our declaration to the principles upon which the religion of spiritualism was founded. We pray that the spirit of tranquility descend upon this congregation and that it will flow to our absent members and to all in need of prayer. We warmly welcome and give thanks for the presence of our spirit family, friends, guides, and teachers. We give thanks for their closeness and desire to demonstrate the continuity of life and love. Amen. And now, the reading of our Declaration of Principles. Pardon me, apparently I'm a little tongue-tied this morning. We believe in infinite intelligence. We believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence. We affirm that a correct understanding of such expression and living in accordance therewith constitute true religion. We affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. We affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by and through the phenomena of spiritualism. We believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We affirm the moral responsibility of individuals and that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. We affirm that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any soul, here or hereafter. We affirm that the precepts of prophecy and healing are divine attributes proven through mediumship. And I cannot wait until we are back in person so that we can do that every week again. But in the meantime, hello and welcome to the year 2021. Is it just me, or does that sound really futuristic to say it that way? 2021. It's amazing to think that just 50 short years ago, people thought that we'd have flying cars and Star Trek-style teleportation by now. Instead of flying cars, we do have handheld mobile devices that have more processing power than all the computers used in the Apollo space program. Then again, we use those mobile devices to download pictures of cats and send each other pictographs in the form of emojis. I have a feeling that the ancient Egyptians would find that rather humorous. Anyhow, isn't the future amazing? I'd like to have thought, personally, that we'd have at least some of the fancy technology that we see on the big screen, like an Iron Man suit or something like that. That would be great, wouldn't it? I mean, and I'm not talking about what Adam Savage did, the amazing creation that he made. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend looking up Adam Savage's Iron Man suit. It's bulletproof, and it actually flies. I mean, it's an amazing piece of technology in its own right, but I digress. How many of you out there are familiar with the comic book character of Iron Man? He's a hero, and sometimes kind of an anti-hero, but he's an interesting character. So show of hands out there. How many of you who know who that is? Iron Man. It's kind of hard to see all of you from here, but okay, I got quite a few people who are familiar with who he is. So it's nice to know that there's some other people out there who are familiar with him. His name, for those of you who are not familiar with Iron Man, the character's name is actually Tony Stark. And he's a stereotypical billionaire, playboy, genius philanthropist who has all sorts of emotional issues, because it's such a miserable existence to be rich and smart and, have everything that you could possibly want. So, of course, he's a very interesting character study. Now, being the sort of billionaire, playboy, genius philanthropist that he is, he deals with his issues by creating a bunch of armored exosuits that are made of all these fancy metals. Hence the name Iron Man. So much like a lot of us can relate to with the year 2020, in the movie Iron Man 3, and yes, he's been in several movies, Tony has an incredibly challenging year. He suffers horrific personal losses and setbacks, all of which cause him to be extremely cautious and worried that he's not going to be able to control his situation. His way of dealing with this, with those feelings, is to start building several suits of armor in order to be prepared for every contingency. When I say several, I'm actually referring to 33 specific suits of armor. In the end, he finds that while trying to prepare for anything that could possibly go wrong, and also in trying to control everything, he not only nearly loses the woman that he loves, but ultimately almost loses everything that he holds dear. Our intrepid hero learns his lesson. You can't control everything that happened to you, but you can control how you react to what happens to you. The highlight of the film's final act is actually when he tells his virtual assistant Jarvis to initiate what he calls the Clean Slate Protocol. So what's that? The Clean Slate Protocol is a command that Tony built into each of his fancy Iron Man suits for them to entirely just blow up and self-destruct. So why would he do this? Really, that was some wonderful technology. It put him a lot of work. The reason being that Tony made a conscious decision to step away from the cocoon and the hiding place that his armor provided him and let go of his fears. Essentially, his way of deciding not to obsess over the events of his past. He decides not to let those past lessons in life control him so that he can move forward and just be happy. In Tony's case, that meant that he needed to commit to his long-suffering girlfriend, and not needed to, but he wanted to, and he chose to finally overcome his fears, and he commits to his long-suffering girlfriend, who happened to be named Pepper Potts, and then he can move forward in his life with a clean slate. And I see a few puzzled looks out there in virtual congregation land. Why in infinite intelligence am I telling you about some comic book movie? I already did that, right? I did that with my, the Bill Comes Due sermon that was almost a year ago now. Wow. After all, what does that really have to do with where we are in the world today? Oh, dear virtual congregation members, if that is your question, then you have not been paying attention to my sermon so far. It actually has quite a bit to do with where we are in the world right now. In a way, I see this movie as having quite a few general themes that are, that we're all going through right now. Even though the events of the movie are generally much more dramatic than us in the real world and what we've gone through, we haven't necessarily had our $10 million mansion in Malibu destroyed by attack helicopters. But that's not my intention to minimize in any way the loss that so many of us have dealt with this year. We have all suffered some degree of trauma in the infamous year that was 2020. We've all had to isolate ourselves, whether we were really ready to do so or not. And also, quite a few of us have suffered material losses as well as the emotional losses, in addition to the truly horrific loss of friends and family that is not just due to COVID and related to that, but also due to ideological differences. In some ways, this past year has been like a blockbuster film. It really has. Part disaster movie, part horror movie, part political drama, and part idiocracy, which in itself, unfortunately, has turned into more of a documentary than I could have ever believed would possibly happen. But having said that, I am optimistic for the future. No, really, I am. I've spoken about this previously, but I really do see this past year as being a wonderful catalyst for each of us, if we choose to use it as such. In what way could I possibly think this past year has been a positive one? Why, thank you for asking me that, Debbie. Allow me to please share my perspective and help you to understand how we can really create our own clean slate protocol to help us move forward from 2020 in the most positive, productive ways possible. That's right. I betcha by the time we're done, you're going to feel much more optimistic about the future, and you won't feel like you have PTSD walking out of 2020 and into 2021. So, how do we do this exactly? Oh, you're going to love this. You're going to learn and grow so much from this experience. Wait. Hey, wait a minute. Why are you all out there wringing your hands and cringing at me right now? I see. Enough of you have seen my previous sermons to know just what that means, huh? Okay. I promise I do. I promise that this will be painless. Mostly. Where to begin? Where did it begin? Thank you, Spirit. Thank you. First things first. Before we go any further, take a second to sit and breathe. We here in Western society do not nearly put enough focus or importance on breath. Just sit quietly and breathe in and out as slowly and deeply as you comfortably can. This rate and depth of breathing is actually called the relaxation breath pattern, and it can be tremendously relaxing. And really, who doesn't need just a bit more relaxation in their lives right now? What do you got to lose? Next, talk to your higher guidance, infinite intelligence, spirit, God, source, whatever term you choose for the divine. And then also connect with your angels and spirit guides and even your own loved ones in spirit. I mean, after all, they were with you throughout every step of the way this past year, and they can help you to gain insights and clarity on the events that you will be focusing on during this time together. As you fall into your own unique breath pattern, it is time to bring to mind everything that you have experienced in 2020. This might take a little while, so, give yourself a little time to do this. And that's where I'm also saying that you don't have to do this right now as I'm speaking to you. Wait, what's that? How much time? This is really going to depend on just how motivated that you are to learn, grow, strive, and thrive. I mean, actually, more than anything, it's going to depend on just how much time you want to spend going through and processing the events of the past year in order to release their control over you. Think of this as being the first and main step of our Clean Slate Protocol. We start by reading what is written on our metaphorical slate before wiping it clean. Wax on, wax off. If you think that you are too busy and that you don't want to spend the time that's necessary on this step, I have 5 words for you. Stop the glorification of busy. Stop the glorification of busy. Stop that thought that we always have to be jumping 10 steps ahead of where we are into the next thing. I've talked about this, but I'm hoping that if I say it one more time that some of you will understand the importance. Anyway, I digress yet again. We are going to do this whole exercise where we go through and think back to the major events that happened in our lives in this previous year. Good, bad, and ugly. I have a very specific reason, actually, for doing this, for asking you to do this, and that reason, it really is not to make you feel badly. It's not, honestly. This is where Galen's advice to Andrew Jackson Davis that just about every pastor talks about in just about every spiritualist sermon, it really does come in handy. Or, actually, I like also to talk about my advice from a previous sermon as well. As Galen told Andrew Jackson Davis, in all things, keep an even mind. Or, as I like to say, just try and be water, be calm, be at peace, be detached, and allow yourself to objectively look at the events of your life and how they occurred. Be a bottle of water and not a bottle of soda. Do not allow the events of 2020 to shake you up and cause you to explode all over everyone around you. Do you understand what I mean by that? Just stay cool, calm, and collected as you start with the beginning of last year, starting with January, and in your mind go through each month. What happened? What were the good things that happened? Because there were. What growth opportunities happened? Or, alternate decisions could you have made? Yeah, I know. Those are just politically correct buzzwords that counselors might use to sound neutral. But, okay, rather than growth opportunities, how about this? What happened in your life that caused you stress or caused you frustration? How about those things that out and out made you angry? Now, what places do you see in the past year where you could have gone right on your path instead of going left? Would you have made the same decision if you had to do it over? Again, I cannot stress enough that the best thing that you can do is to try and remember to be water throughout this entire process. Objectively, as if you were watching someone else's life, go through the year, month by month, and think about the choices of that past year and how you feel things went. As you are going through this process, now emotions will come up, especially around the times where we've perceived a loss of some kind. Acknowledge those feelings. Don't try and bury them. Regardless of the type of loss it is of the utmost importance that you acknowledge those feelings. Whether it be some sort of physical loss, such as a job or a home, or an emotional loss, such as the loss of a person to ideological differences, aka you're on one side of the political spectrum and they're on the other side, or there's the whole mask debate, but I'm not going to get into that today. Just even if it's a spiritual loss of the loss of a loved one or multiple loved ones, unfortunately, in this case. One of the most difficult things for anyone is to truly allow themselves to feel their emotions. Now, I do realize that I did say that I am asking you to be water or to keep an even mind. But that does not mean that you should be stoic, and that does not mean that you should not feel anything. That means that you should not allow your emotions to control you. And after you do allow your emotions and you allow yourself to feel those emotions for a minute, release those emotions to the universe with the intention of being healed. Remember that intention is everything when it comes to anything of a spiritual nature. In addition to those challenging situations, I want you to pay special attention to the positives that occurred in 2020. For some of us, that might be a bit easier than others, but I can guarantee that there are happy things that happened to all of us, as well as those negative things we all don't want to dwell on. Even if you don't immediately think of some of these things as being positive, let me help you kind of reframe some of those things for a moment. Let's make a nice pretty frame to go with this picture, okay? Look at how many of us who were always told that, working from home, it just wasn't feasible for our company to do that. It was going to be a terrible thing that would never work. And then all of a sudden, the company found a way to very easily transition people into working from home and making things happen where, look at that, suddenly you've got more time with your family. Suddenly you've got more time to take care of other things that are priorities in your lives besides just living to work. Now, I do apologize to all the teachers out there because I know that your job got 100 times more difficult during the pandemic, But I do want to say a special shout out and a special thank you to all of you for your patience during this time. Now, one of the things that a lot of people run into also is, you may not have the opportunity to work from home, or you may not be you may be an essential employee, so you have to go to work. In those cases, be grateful that you do have that income coming in. You do have that support to help you keep a roof over your heads, keep, food on the table. But even if you did lose your job, at least you have more time to spend with your family, with your loved ones. There's always something that you can look to. There is always, always, always a reason to be thankful. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to find the silver linings in the clouds, but if you need help, give me a call, send me a text, send me a message on the church page. I can kind of help you to reframe things a little bit to help you see the options you may not have seen for yourself also. But I digress, hopefully for the last time during this sermon. So, you've just gone through the year 2020 in your mind and having relived those big events and meaningful moments that you've experienced. Now, take a minute. Yes, it does not have to be several hours. Just a minute or two will do, and think back to the changes of 2020 and just how those changes have shaped who you are. What have you learned? Much like Tony Stark in Iron Man 3, I can bet that a lot of us, we've kind of learned to appreciate those things that we do have, while at the same time also appreciating some of the situations that have ended during this past year. As a quick example, I know of several people who they may have lost their jobs, but they were jobs that person necessarily didn't enjoy anyhow. And then because of opportunities that happened during the pandemic, they were able to pick up other employment that they happen to much more appreciate and that they happen to really like a lot more. So even those things that seem like a door closing in your face can be an opportunity for another door to open, provided you turn around and look. And that is so important. Sometimes the biggest blessings really do come with what we perceive as our greatest losses. Unhappy relationships that have ended and allowing us to be happy again. Or maybe a loved one who made their transition to spirit. While they will be missed here and their energy will be greatly missed, it is a great, great comfort to know that they are no longer suffering and that they are kicking up their heels with their own loved ones up in spirit. They're having a party in Summerland. And now that you've sat down and you've kind of read over that slate that you wrote in 2020 and have understood what you needed to in order to learn, grow, strive, and thrive, it's time to wipe that slate clean, don't you think? I think it really is. And give me a moment while I fight with this. If you aren't already there, put yourself into that relaxation breath pattern yet again. Remember that relaxation breath pattern from probably about 10 or so minutes ago? I knew you would. Fall into your relaxation breath pattern. Breathe. Now, set the intention in your mind of leaving behind everything that is not in your best interest to have in your life moving forward. Blow up all those old Iron Man suits that are no longer that you're no longer in need of. Take the lessons of the past year and take them with you and release the heavy thoughts, feelings, and energies that accompanied those lessons. Ask Spirit for help with this if you need it. Much like at Hogwarts, help will always be available to those who ask for it. Feel yourself relaxing and letting go. Be water. Keep an open mind. Keep an even mind. Know that you have gone through a very important time in your life, and indeed a very significant time in history. And you are now a much better, stronger, and happier person because of it. You really are. Raise a proverbial glass to yourself and to 2021. A year filled with promise and opportunity. I see great things ahead for each of us this year. Remember, change isn't always easy, but it is necessary. Our church, for example, it will continue to grow and evolve this year, much like spiritualism and, much like the sunflower, honestly, the symbol of the Spiritualist Church. Even as things continue to change in the world, the sunflower, it will always seek the light of the sun, much like spiritualism always seeks the light of spiritualist truth. Before we all know it, we'll be back here in person, and each Sunday, I will get to see each of your smiling faces sitting in those pews that I should be at today, but, I took the day off. And I am so looking forward to seeing all of your smiling faces there. And we'll have our amazing healers in our healing room working before our church services. And we'll have our potlucks afterwards again. Life will return to a new normal that will resemble what it was before. But you know what? We will be different. We will appreciate what we have even more than we have before. We will be much less likely to take things for granted. And, this is all part of that Clean Slate Protocol that not only did Mr. Tony Stark go through, but in a lot of ways we have already gone through today. And we will be able to start over in our lives from a place of strength and optimism as opposed to a place of fear. Especially since, that the best is yet to come. So, don't forget to keep your fort because the best is yet to come. On behalf of the Christabelle Spiritualist Church here in beautiful Cherry Valley, Illinois, or in my case, from my bedroom in Sycamore, Illinois, I wish you all a wonderfully positive, prosperous, and fun year filled with peace, joy, promise, and opportunity. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing each of you in person again very soon. Have a great year.